Ichiro here from Umbra Games with a review of Double Dragon Neon, released way back in 2012, digitally on Xbox 360, but now available on Gamepass, playable on Xboxes, and Limited Run Games also released physical Switch copies available for sale back in May of 2021. This iteration of the series was published by Majesco and developed by WayForward, was played on an Xbox Series X with local co-op for the review. Double Dragon has been around for a very long time. The first NES title developed by Technos Japan and published by TradeWest in the US, it was one of the first actual 10 games in my collection of almost 6,000 that I have now. I have its music, characters, and sound effects branded deeply into my brain. Obviously, with a change of hands with WayForward and Majesco, we could expect to see something a little different, but yet a lot of things still remain the same. Surely everyone is at least a little familiar with the series. Brothers Billy and Jimmy have fought against various gangs through the years, and this one calls back to the original with the boy's person, Marion, taking a punch to the gut and getting kidnapped just like the original. We even have a grayscale mission start screen with a variation on that original music. But while original Double Dragon came out in the 80s, Neon feels much more 80s, tapping on catchphrases, bad jokes, and other 80s paraphernalia. All characters are pretty sharp, cartoon-styled 3D models, all with a variety of smooth animations. You have a jump, punch, and kick button, and combinations of the buttons will do some various moves. This Double Dragon also adds a small duck move with the left trigger that can be perfectly timed for Gleam, a couple moments of increased attack power. If you hold a direction and hit left trigger, you'll do a roll with some invulnerability frames to help you escape danger. You can also run with the right trigger with a significantly long wind-up delay. Some enemies will bring weapons into the fray. You can beat on them until they drop it, and then use them yourselves in true Double Dragon fashion. While an enemy is doing their wind-up animation for it though, you can't interrupt or stun them, so you'd have to watch for that. But you're also pretty lethal yourself, with weapons like knives and bats, stunning enemies and doing massive damage as you swing that weapon until it breaks or you decide to throw it. I'd played Double Dragon 4 from Arc System Works most recently of the series on PlayStation 4. There was just that kind of feeling of cheapness. A lot of times you had to sort of come down or go up on the plane of the enemy sprite to where you could try to hit them like that, because approaching them face on often got you smacked. In early Double Dragon titles, the jump kicking enemies as soon as they got up was the cheap solution to help you come out on top as well. It sort of felt like all that was gone here. With the duck and just the ability to step out of range, this is the first Double Dragon where I really felt like no cheapness was required to progress well, and it felt great. There are a few bosses that have attacks I kind of feel like, what am I supposed to do here? But nothing insurmountable. As I mentioned, Neon only has local co-op, and it was definitely a bit awkward to set up on Xbox Series X, or I imagine an Xbox One as well. Started the game with my Xbox account, and it retrieved some 360 data. Then we tried to have my buddy sign in, and it made him retrieve his 360 data, but it only did it partially, saying he had to sign in on the Xbox Series X first, then he signed in on my Series X, then had to sign in again and try to retrieve his 360 credentials again. We both did get achievements though, so I guess there's that, but we were definitely several minutes delayed getting started. While playing co-op, if either player loses all HP, you can perform a cassette tape rewind over their body by pressing the B button and then hammering that button as quickly as possible. If there are enemies still on the screen, this can be a bit trickier. While most seem to do just their regular attack while you're in that duck reviving position, some enemies do strike low with that, disrupting your revive and making you start over. On a successful revive, the player will get full life. You do have a life count per stage and have to continue from the beginning if all lives are lost. There is a stealing system if one player runs out before the other, taking a life or half of the other player's HP to come back. There's usually been somewhat of a progression system in Double Dragon. I remember the first, for example, you'd earn hearts based on score, and each one would get you a new move. In the true spirit of the over-the-top 80s presentation in Neon, enemies will drop audio cassette tapes. You can also buy them in shops. You'll collect stance and ability tapes, and you can equip both a single stance and single ability at a time. Every duplicate tape you collect will level up that ability or stance to a beginning max of 10. The max can be raised by collecting mithril dropped from game's bosses and turning that into a tapesmith, raising the price for each upgrade of 10 each time to a full upgrade range of 50. Your abilities are used by hitting the right bumper and can only be used as long as you have enough, I don't know what they call it, maybe dragon power, the bar under your health bar. This recharges over time, but you'll also find pickups that can refill it. These items will drop from destructible boxes, crates, and barrels in the environment. The stances are passive that grant stat boosts and things like health regeneration on hit. Which yeah, there's stats. After finishing the game on normal, we attempted the next difficulty and made it to the stage 2 boss out of 10 stages, and after a few attempts decided to go back to normal difficulty and farm some tapes, cash, and mithril to see if we could work on some builds. You select your stage from a map, and on each difficulty they must be completed in order for the first time, but can be replayed from then on at any time. You'll see when you're on a stage icon if there is a shop or tapesmith that can be found within it. Unfortunately, difficulty change did kind of just seem like enemies have more HP and hit harder, which yeah, it's more difficult, but enemy HP sliders always end up making the game just start to feel monotonous. so we set out to grind the Power Gambit stanch, which increases damage significantly, especially when maxed out. It ended up making the harder difficulty feel easier than normal by the time we attempted it again after the farming. The voice acting and dialogue is awful. I think it's intentionally awful though, thankfully, in an exaggerated, overdramatic 80s sort of way. It was definitely good for a few laughs. Another thing we did notice is there were multiple lines of dialogue for the same situation, which in a game you're going to grind a bit, that's a nice touch. The music though, fantastic remixes with the melodies and hooks of the original and some high fidelity 80s style. There are a handful of songs with lyrics too that fit the 80s feel very nicely, as well as a comical ending credits song. When you're collecting your audio cassettes for upgrades while on the menu to set those, they each have individual songs that go with them as well. You can tell a lot of work went into the musical composition for the game. Overall, Double Dragon Neon keeps the series staple characters in combat with some improvements, and a unique cassette tape gathering leveling system, some fun character models and art style, replay value in its multiple difficulties, some varying boss encounters, the cheapness in combat all but gone, local co-op that can be frustrating to get started on the Xbox 360 version of the game on a modern Xbox, but a great time once you can get it started. Rated as a 2D beat 'em up, Double Dragon Neon hits a 69 out of 100 on my true 0 to 100 scale, where 50 is an average game. This is Jiro for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching.